we're trying to keep you stay close to me, and I bet that's your unit over there. So turn it facing this.
No, I can give him this. There you go.
Thank you. I can use that one. That's fine. I can look at that one.
Well,
We gotta put,
because I
we
might
gotta
have to
get
put
PD.
somebody else on it.
Oh, I thought you were going to put PD down there.
I am going to try and put
We're
PD
trying
right
to
here
keep
in
him-
between.
We want to keep him away.
Yeah,
You want?
PD have herpes. You have herpes. I've been trying to. Huh?
More people here than I thought.
Or who are running.
I've been here every day.
All right,
You know.
PD.
Bye.
Here.
So is Rick.
I haven't been
Your
here.
unit.
Yeah, right.
The first day I've been here in a month. Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's a little smaller than normal.
That's all right.
Where do we have Larry?
Where do you have Larry?
Right here?
We're trying to keep us all separated,
Okay.
but
I'll move.
no, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. Then put Larry right
over
here. No, Larry, be right here, because we've all been together. Okay, the stream is up, so everybody knows. I don't know where this stream is. Next.
Mike, how are you?
Hey, Mike. We don't have the audio turned on until we.
Was I on a minute ago?
You're on now, Mike.
Now.
Okay, I'm coming to you live from my at-home storage closet office. It's really fancy.
I spared no expense.
No expense.
Jurassic Park. Do you see that?
We're waiting for Kevin.
Can you hear us, Commissioner Bloomer?
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, wait, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome, welcome.
Hello.
Danny can give his presentation.
The sheriff there?
Yes, the sheriff's here.
Okay, I just can't see him. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We're trying to keep away from you. Not because of you, because of us.
All right, we ready to get
I
started?
think we're waiting for Kevin. And then issues logging on, so there shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
There you go.
Commissioner Calvi, welcome.
Yes, had a little technical difficulty. I think we're good now. So is everybody here? I'm still having trouble seeing everybody.
Everyone's here now.
Very good. Okay, then let's go ahead and let me pull up the agenda and we'll begin here. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Roll call. We'll go ahead and start the roll. I'll do it in the order it is on the agenda. So Treasurer Freeman,
Jerry Stone here for Butch Freeman. Is your microphone on? Jerry Stone.
okay, thank you. Commissioner Mon,
Present.
Commissioner Bloomer,
Here.
and County Clerk Hooten,
Present.
our court clerk,
Rick Warren's
Mr.
here.
Warren, here. Our assessor, Mr. Stein,
Yes, sir, present.
Sheriff Taylor,
Present.
and I am present, Commissioner Calvi. So the first item will be a discussion and possible action to set a date, time, and place of this meeting to reconvene in the event we have technical difficulties that cannot be resolved within 30 minutes. Is there a suggestion on when that would be done?
I would make a motion to reconvene at 1:30 tomorrow if that were to happen.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and then we've been calling the roll on each one of these for the sake of the clerk. So we'll go ahead and go down the roll again. Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Commissioner Mon,
Aye.
Mr. Bloomer,
Aye.
Mr. Hooten,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor,
Aye.
and I will vote aye. Motion carries. Okay, notice this meeting was properly posted April 14th, 2020. Mr. Warren, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Thank you.
Okay, next item,
Allowing.
number 2, is a discussion and possible action for approval of the minutes from March 19 and from the special meeting on March 12. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We'll call the roll. Mr. Freeman, or sorry, Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Mr. Mon,
Aye.
Mr. Bloomer,
Aye.
Mr. Hooten,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor,
Aye.
and I will vote aye. Motion carries. Okay, our consent agenda is items 3 through 33. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We'll call the roll. Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Mr. Mon,
Aye.
Mr. Bloomer,
Aye.
Mr. Hooten,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
and Sheriff Taylor.
Aye.
And I will vote aye. Consent agenda is adopted. Okay. Next item is item 34. It's monthly financial report. Mr. Lambert.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good to see everybody. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I'm gonna pull up the report.
Which one, the PDF, monthly report?
It's gonna be the PowerPoint. Hopefully you'll be able to see it when I pull it up. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
All right, awesome. All right, the first page is our general fund budget as of the end of March. The blue column to the right, that is our current budgets for all our departments. Just to note, we have reserve $8,584,105. You've got 4 items on your agenda today to move money out of reserve to different departments. Those items total up to $99,707. So if those were approved, that would decrease our reserve down to $8,484,398. And you also have an item on here to consider a flat budget. So if you go that route, these are the budgets that you would see if we did go with a flat budget here. So you can always reference back to this. A couple slides over, this is our general fund budget. End of March, we've collected in revenue a little less than 86 million. It's about 94% of what we budget for the year. We did reach our 90% collections, so that freed up departments can now spend the rest of their budget if needed. We ended the month with a balance of 35.8 million in general fund. Very next slide, still looking at general fund comparing to last year. Revenue, we are up in revenue about 4.8 million. Almost 2.7 of that is from property tax. Nothing unexpected there. We had budgeted an increase of 3.3 million. Intergovernmental revenue is up 2.1 million. The bulk of that is the juvenile detention service money that we've received that we did not receive the same time last year. So all total, we are up 4.8 million. We budgeted an increase of 4.2 million, so we're right on track with where we thought we would be this year. Expenditures are up 3.4 million. We had budgeted an increase of 2.2 million, so you'll probably see that flatten out here in the next couple of months. That's enough on general fund. The very next slide is employee benefits fund. Can everybody still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, employee benefits fund. The month of March was the lowest claims month we've had so far this fiscal year. We had claims of 943,000. So taking the actuals through the end of March, projecting out the last 3 months, we anticipate we'll end the year with a cash balance of 1.4 million. A little bit less than we had budgeted. We had budgeted a little $1.9 million cash balance. So depending on how the last 3 months of claims play out, we'll determine how we end up in this fund, of course. Don't know what that sound is, but.
Not an emergency. It's not an emergency. It's
Okay,
just
good.
something.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like the CRAM warning in Baghdad, so we hope it's not
We're on
incoming
aircraft
Katyusha rockets.
Yeah. The very next slide is your medical and prescription claims as of this week. And we net out all the stop loss reimbursements, refunds. We have net paid claims increase of about 6% or 846,000 over last year. A couple more slides over is capital projects fund. Only thing I wanted to point out here is that very first column, the adopted budget. You'll see toward the very bottom, we have an unallocated line item of 99,142. You've got 2 items later on this agenda from Stacy Trumbo requesting some money be transferred out of the 99,142 to cover a couple different projects. And then right above that, just as a reminder, you've got a line item of 300,000 for capital projects as needed, if any other capital projects come up the rest of this fiscal year. Does anybody have any questions?
Is
Motion to receive the report.
that
Thank you.
the unallocated line item? Is that just? Can you explain why that's there?
Yes, as projects finish out and we didn't spend as much as what was budgeted, that money gets moved down to the unallocated, and then money that we receive in every month for interest income on this capital projects fund goes into unallocated also.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there there further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll. Mr. Stone.
Aye.
Commissioner Mott.
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Aye.
Mr. Hooton.
Aye.
Mr. Warren.
Aye.
Mr. Stein.
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor.
Aye.
I will vote aye. So motion to receive the report carries. Okay, next thing, Mr. Wilkerson, we have item 35, discussion and possible action regarding an update of the county's health insurance plan.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Wilkerson.
I'm just going to touch on a couple points. First, on plan costs, as Danny said, really actual plan costs paid are up only 2.5% compared to last fiscal year at this point. So we're doing really well on paid cost. What we're seeing this fiscal year versus last fiscal year, we've had almost 1,000 more paid claims. So more services paid this fiscal year versus last. We see our inpatient costs down 24%, outpatient up 6%, and then our professional costs and all our 100% benefits up 25%. But overall, really on a cost basis, we're under the normal national trends, which is really positive. Now, I'm going to touch on during this pandemic where our members are at in terms of utilization and costs and the driving factors behind that. Looking at our current inpatient data, to date, we've avoided any inpatient stays related to the COVID-19 diagnosis, which is very positive. We had one potential 3-day case, but the diagnosis was not confirmed, and that member's been released from the hospital. So we've avoided any inpatient hospital claims related to COVID-19. We're continuing to see inpatient admissions through the shutdown, which is normal compared to last fiscal year. We've had about 9 inpatient admissions since the beginning of March. So those trends are continuing, really relative to the same as last fiscal year. For other services during the shutdown, we still see office visit utilization, urgent care, emergency care. Those are all continuing. So, and we're also seeing through Premise Health, we are seeing telecommunication visits, and we're also seeing through Revis telecommunication visits. So, but there's no alarming trends. Now, touching on elective surgeries, you know, those have been suspended currently, but what I'm seeing now is those are starting to be rescheduled in speculation starting in the middle of May. Of course, those could be changed, but we're starting to see those being rescheduled, pre-certified, and I think that's what they're speculating to start back those by the middle of May. And that's all I have unless there are any questions.
John, the only question I would have is, are we seeing any increased utilization of the some of the phone consultation things that we have available that you've built into the plan here? Are we seeing some more of that, or is that something that ought to be encouraged?
We absolutely are seeing great utilization from Premise Health for the telecommunication visits, and also on the brain care or mental health side, we're seeing increased utilization through Revis, through telecommunication visits. So people are still getting care, which is good. They're still connecting with care, and they're not seeing really as many barriers since those means are available now.
Great, thanks. Any further questions?
John, do you think that, you know, we had in March, we had very low claims. Danny said the lowest claims all year. Do you see that spiking in, you know, you said people are rescheduling in May for elective surgeries, but do you see our costs spiking in June when, and I don't even know if people are going to be allowed to, you know, freely do what they need to, even in June, but do you have any anticipation of how it will affect our claims once people are able to do all the healthcare they need to do?
Great question. What I see now on the surgery side is we have about 3 or 4 surgeries that have been, you know, rescheduled for May, and those might fall into June. We're still seeing some utilization for regular doctor office visits. Urgent care and emergency care continue now. So I don't expect a large spike. Really, there's a delay in when we pay things versus when the treatment's rendered. So sometimes it takes up to 6 months to actually receive the claim and pay it versus when it's actually incurred. So I don't expect, the good news is I don't expect a huge spike in increase in costs due to the shutdown.
Okay.
Motion to accept the report.
Okay, we have motions or second?
Second.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Commissioner Mott,
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer,
Aye.
Mr. Hooten,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor.
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Wilkerson. Okay, item 36 is the BET, Budget Evaluation Team. Mr. Compton.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Cody.
DET met this month and we got 4 changes to the watch list. We got 3 new items and 1 item that was previously on the watch list that has moved to the recommendation column. Items 37, 38, 39, and 40 are associated with those 4 items. 37 is a new item, and it is a recommendation from BET to fund. It's for the election board reimbursement from the special election on March the 3rd. Item 38 is an item for the commissioner's account. It's a $250 recommendation to fund that due to a change in the monthly travel allowance and the FICA associated with that. Item 39 is also a recommendation from BET. It's been on the watch list in the past. The change this month is it moved from just a watch list item to a recommendation item.
What is that item?
That is an amount of $77,405.61 for the sheriff's department to lease office space.
Who are they leasing from?
The agenda item doesn't specify that the talk in the past has been from PBA, but that's an open-ended amount according to the agenda item.
Okay.
And then item number 40 is one of the other new items. It is a recommendation from BET to fund. It's for court services in their GPS monthly monitoring, and that's an $8,000 item. BET also has item number 51 that is a recommendation from our group, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have related to any of those specific items as they come up on your agenda. And just to let you know, item number 37, Ms. Hollis asked that I address any questions. She wasn't going to be able to make it. I've got an email from her, so if you guys have questions on that one, she's not here to answer, but I would be happy to answer as many of those questions as I can.
Thank you, Cody.
I'll motion to receive his report.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. We'll call the roll. Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Commissioner Mon,
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer,
Aye.
Mr. Hooten,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor.
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Compton. Okay, departmental items. We have item 37 was just referenced by Mr. Compton, and that's for the cost of the special election. Are there any questions?
I'll motion to move that item. Second.
Okay, we motion a second. We'll call the roll. Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Commissioner Mon,
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer,
Aye.
Mr. Hooten,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. Okay, item 38, also referenced in the BET report for the, okay, we got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. We'll call the roll. Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Commissioner Mon,
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer,
Aye.
Mr. Hooten,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor,
Aye.
and I will vote aye. Motion carries. Item 39, also referenced in the BET. This is the transfer for the rent, I guess. Are there questions on this matter?
I have a question, Commissioner. The other electeds don't pay rent for their locations, yet we're going to set precedence by having the sheriff's office pay rent. How do we, I just wanted to discuss that and how we all feel about that. I know that it's a PBA-owned building, and I understand that part, but being that next year we're going to move into probably a financially challenging year, do we really want to be spending money out of general fund to charge an elected for office space?
I think that's a very valid question, but I think we legally, if the sheriff moves into, if he does move into the Kraus building, I think we legally have to charge him rent. Do we not?
I think
it can let someone stay.
we could charge him $1, or what we could do, since we bought the building itself for $10 from Oklahoma City, we could sell it back to the PBA, could sell it back to the county and double their money. We'd give them 20.
That guy's involved.
Further questions? Further questions or comments?
So, but this item basically moves the money to the sheriff's office in the event that they would need to pay rent. It's not, am I correct? It's not necessarily, the sheriff isn't going to turn around and spend this. It's just making the money available if it's needed, correct?
But rather than opening that door, wouldn't it make more sense the fact that what we're doing is taking out of one pocket and putting it in the other? PBA is also part of the county. So basically, wouldn't it make more sense to either charge him $1 or sell the building back to the county? And that way, since the beginning of the county, we've never charged any of the elected officials rent. None of us pay rent. The sheriff shouldn't be treated any differently.
I just thought that the PBA has funds right now and is liquid. I just wanted to know, is this really a responsible thing to do right now?
Are there further questions or comments?
I'd like to just add, I don't disagree with anything here being said. I just want to remind the elected officials, this process started well over a year ago. And I met with the district attorney over a year ago, and he certainly agreed that it would be an excellent decision to request a county-owned building, whatever's decided, whether there's rent or it's $1 a year or whatever, to keep that money within the county family. Our original proposal over a year ago talked about the possibility, in case there was a crisis or emergency, that other elected officials could utilize that building and operate. We had no idea that we were going to have a crisis before long, but we have been involved in this for well over a year. We've looked at about every building in Oklahoma County, every board, every committee, every group of people, and now the BET has all recommended that the sheriff's office be allowed to move to the Kraus building. And I would certainly encourage, if it was decided later that it's $1 a year, $10 a year, $20 a year, or it's free, I mean, that would be following past practice. But I would certainly encourage us moving this and approving it today so we can continue to move. And the money can be redirected at our next regular meeting if that's the majority's opinion.
I think the Kraus building makes good sense for the sheriff. The building's in pretty decent shape, but once again, it was sold to the county for the $10 through the PBA. The PBA purchased it. We could buy it back from the PBA, make it part of the county, since we do have a need now that we didn't recognize back a year ago. We have a need for it. So rather than treating PD Taylor, our sheriff, any different than would any other elected official, it makes a lot of sense for us to take the building back to the county, pay the PBA for it, the $10, and then not charge him any rent, any lease, treat him just like we would any other elected official.
Cody, from a BET perspective, did this conversation ever come up of, I think a lot of us are in agreement that Kraus is the best option, but was there ever a discussion about either not charging the sheriff rent or charging him $1, or what was the discussion around that?
There really wasn't any discussion around that in particular, and I believe I know there's not a whole lot of precedent for elected officials paying rent per se. However, Commissioner Mullen, when he was out of Lincoln, paid a nominal amount, but that was partly because it was a temporary basis and not going to be a full-time situation. With PBA being a trust to which the county is a beneficiary, we've been told in the past by legal counsel that we do have to charge. If it was a county property, then, of course, we wouldn't have to. Now, what we have to charge, that's a question for the DA's office to answer, whether we can do $1 a year or whether it needs to be at market. This amount was considered based on a market analysis from Keith Monroe. If the pleasure of the board is to go a different direction, we can always look at that. One thing that I would mention, though, is in the future, if we do transfer from PBA to the county and say the sheriff's office needed, if for whatever reason it was going to be better for them to be relocated somewhere else, then the county would not be able to lease that space to somebody else. You would be limited there. Or even if the sheriff's department is there, but another law enforcement agency wanted the second floor, we would be a little bit hampered on being able to lease to another law enforcement agency.
And Cody, that's not a one-way street, though. If the county purchased from the PBA the building for the said price of whatever they paid for it, that can always be reversed if these situations happen. So we can't foresee the future on some things like this. What we can see is our current need is the sheriff needs a location. We can transfer the building to the county. Now the PBA doesn't have that issue about charging rent. The county owns a building. And if it ever comes that we don't need the building, we could always sell it back to the PBA for $10 and they could put it back in their trust.
May we hear from Keith also? Y'all stand apart.
Thank you. To be clear, different departments do pay rent to the Public Building Authority in terms of parking, contract parking in the metro parking garages, also for space located in the Investors Capital Building. So it's in keeping with what the county has done in the past.
I don't think any elected official in the history of the county has ever paid rent on their office space.
Well, the county commissioners pay $8 a square foot for their in their building.
That's a temporary.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, this might be temporary because isn't the Army Department 45th Infantry interested in that building, Commissioner Calvi?
Yes, they are very interested in purchasing it, the Oklahoma Military Department. Yes.
So how did we get to $77,405.61? That's paying rent from April 1st through the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. That's based on a market rental rate of $13.50 per square foot for the first floor, which approximates 17,000 square feet, and half of the basement. I don't have that square foot.
So about $23,000 a month.
How much do we pay for parking? How much do county offices pay for parking across the street? Depending on where they park, it ranges from $95 a space to $110 a space.
Monthly.
Is that market? It's below market. So the precedent has been set that we can charge below market. It's just a matter of how much. In metro parking. Okay. Keith, my question is that you said it covers past practice. Rent. Haven't the way we've done it in the past, it's like $8 a square foot, and we're not charging full market value space. In some locations, that's an Investors Capital Building for sure. This figure was based on what the Wildlife Department had paid previously, some 3 years during their occupancy there. The Wildlife Department constitutional duty? I can't answer that question.
Okay, are there further questions or comments?
Yeah, do you know if we switch this to a county building, if that precludes us from being able to rent out the space not utilized by the sheriff?
Wait, what was it? Did someone answer that?
No,
The DA doesn't have an answer at this time.
they'll research it.
Okay.
Okay. Further questions or comments?
Well, I don't think that the issue right now is whether or not the PBA needs to go back to the county. I think it's whether or not we need to fund the sheriff to pay rent. And if, kind of like what I think maybe Cody said, if legally we can charge the sheriff $1 a year, I'm fine with that. But I think for this item, it's if we want to provide him that money today and then we figure it out, or if we want to do more homework and then come back to it.
Well, being that it's April 15th and this is for April 1st, I mean, it's going to be a different amount, but
I'd like to go ahead and move it and approve it. We can always redirect it later. I mean, I'd like to get this going so MIS and the phone lines and things can start moving. But I'm certainly not objecting to $10 a year rent. I second that.
Well, and one of the reasons why it's on here in this, why it's before you, before anybody else, is before it goes to BOCC and PBA to negotiate lease terms and that kind of stuff. The sheriff's office wanted the money in their account so that they would be able to encumber whatever dollar amount that is. So if the money was transferred and a dollar amount was amicable, lower than that by BOCC and the PBA trustees, then those changes could always be addressed in the lease agreement.
Here's my problem. I want the sheriff to have the space. I think it's a great location for him. I want him to have the space. But we voted on this today and put the money there. Then we're no longer involved. Then it's up to the commissioners whether they do it after that. Is that correct?
After the money is allocated, then the sheriff would have sufficient funds to encumber for the lease. The actual lease negotiations, regardless of the funding mechanisms, the lease negotiations would be between BOCC and the PBA trust.
Commissioner Calvi, just not to interrupt anybody, but you do have a motion on the floor by the sheriff and a second from Larry Stein.
Right. Thank you. I assume we were in discussion before taking the vote. Is there further discussion?
I think
Yes.
that it's an issue too with the DA, not just up to the commissioners. I think we've approached, uncovered maybe a legal issue. I was under the understanding that we had to charge because of it being a PBA building and what the amount could be. And I also think, from what I'm told, that it would preclude us from renting. So if we go one way or the other. And then Keith, don't we have some repairs or remodeling that has to be done? It's going to have to be paid for by something to accommodate.
Yes, but not before the sheriff could have been if you decide to do so. I need to point out too that there are bonds which PBA buildings and revenue streams are pledged to. So we have to charge something.
Got a motion and a second.
Okay. Is there a motion and a second? Is there further discussion? Okay. We'll go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Stone?
No.
Commissioner Mon?
Did we get the item number, the number, dollar amount on the item?
And there was there was a motion and a second
For $10.
No, there's a motion and a second for the item, which is as written, $77,405.61.
I'd like to withdraw my second now. I was seconding the motion from the sheriff who said $10.
Okay.
I'd like to withdraw my
Okay.
second.
So the motion is for the item for $77,405.61. Is that correct, Sheriff Taylor?
Well, the second's been withdrawn.
Well, yeah, but
Well,
that's
also-
Ask DA, can we,
can go up to that amount.
add an amendment to this and change the amount to $10 a month?
I believe you can go down, you can't go up.
Let's go
That
down.
motion.
okay. So would you like to restate your motion?
But changing the motion to $10 a month, you're already tying the commissioner's hands to say this is what the rent is going to be. That's up to the commissioners and the DA's office to decide, right?
Yes, I think the problem with
That's our whole point.
doing it down to 10 if there's an idea to make sure that the sheriff can get in there in the next several weeks, doing $10, there's no guarantee because the DA's office could come back and say, no, you can't do that. If we did the 77,000, or even if you took the 25,801.87 for April 1 to the end of April, if you took that out and just approved a transfer for the amount of May 1 through June 30, which would be 51,603.74, then we know for sure that the sheriff would be able to move in because the DA's office, I don't see them having a problem with them leasing at market rate. And then if we talk to the DA's office and they are willing, or if they sign off on them entering into the lease at a lower amount, for instance, $10, then we could always do that. So we're covered both ways, and the sheriff would be able to move in expeditiously.
But as a budget board, being good stewards of the county's money, our job is to see to it that we do it in a way that meets the needs of the county. And what we're doing here, we vote on this. I'm more than willing to vote for the sheriff to go there and to vote the rent at $10. And then we can let the DA take a look at it and see if that's legal, because the budget board can always have a special meeting.
But that's not.
Once we vote for the 77,000, we're taking it out of the hands of the budget board, who are supposed to be the stewards for the money, and we're putting it in the hands of the commissioners. Nothing against the commissioners, but at this point, that's the reason we're having this meeting.
Okay, just as a point of order, the sheriff has a motion that was not an amended motion. He made a motion to approve the item. He didn't state it as, well, he didn't amend the item and ask for an amendment. Are you wanting to withdraw your motion, Sheriff?
Again, this has been going on for over a year. I believe passing this agenda item in its current form will keep us moving forward. My statement, well, I'm certainly not opposed to being more fair and equitable in negotiating upcoming leases, but this has been delayed and delayed and delayed. I would like to continue my original motion of approving the $77,000. Hopefully there'll be a second to keep this moving for the future.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I believe the DA has said we cannot substantially change this agenda item. So I think any amendments. I don't believe that's correct.
We've been told in the past you can go down in dollar amount, just not
Exactly.
up.
We just can't go up.
Well, I'm going to second the sheriff's motion.
Okay, so you have a motion that is to hold the item, and you have a second now on the floor.
Correct. That's right. So there's a motion and a second on the item. Is there further discussion before we call the roll? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the roll. Mr. Stone.
No.
Commissioner Mon.
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Aye.
Mr. Hooton.
Aye.
Mr. Warren.
Aye.
Mr. Stein.
No.
Sheriff Taylor.
Aye.
And I will vote no. The majority is in favor. The motion carries. Okay, next item is item 40. That was also referenced in the BET for court services. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. We'll call the roll. Mr. Stone.
Aye.
Commissioner Mon.
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Aye.
Mr. Hooton.
Aye.
Mr. Warren.
Aye.
Mr. Stein.
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor.
Aye.
And I will vote aye. Motion carries. Okay, item 41 is transfer of general fund appropriations of $7,000 from benefits to operation necessary to cover expenses related to the COVID-19 event and employees working remotely. Is there somebody to speak to this, or are there questions?
Hello, yes.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Oh, hi, this is Chantel, and I was actually going to request that we strike this item. This was put on in the event needs came to surface, and that was not realized. We are working
Okay.
successfully, and I would request a strike.
I withdraw my second.
Okay, is there a motion to strike?
Motion to strike.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Stone.
Aye.
Commissioner Mon.
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Aye.
Mr. Hooton,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor,
Aye.
and I will vote aye. Thank you, Ms. Bosso.
Thank you.
Okay, item 42 is 60,000 from maintenance and operations to salary purposes to put funds back into salary that were transferred early this year to stay within their 90% budget. This is requested by MIS and IT. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we'll call the roll. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Commissioner Blumert?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Motion carries. Item 43, transfer from the Assessor's Revaluation Fund, 18,000 to Travel and Capital. It's necessary for the purchase of mapping software license. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. We'll call the roll. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Commissioner Blumert?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. Motion carries. Item 44, transfer from Facilities Maintenance Courthouse to Facilities Management Annex, 13,000 from salary and travel to operation. Continue paying UBM for extra workers to disinfect the buildings during this COVID-19 event. Are there any questions?
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second. Call the roll. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Mr. Blumert?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
And Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. Okay, so item 44 carries. 45, appropriation to the county free fair in the amount of $3,277.75 from salary and benefits to operation to pay premiums for the livestock and horse show that we host every year. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second, are we going to have a free fair?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know.
Sooner or later.
Yeah. So it sounds like maybe an insurance thing, so. Okay, any further questions? Okay, we have motion and a second. We'll call the roll. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Mr. Blumert?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. Motion carries. Item 46, move 35,000 from unallocated funds within capital projects to the OG&E vault line item in order to replace 2 columns within that vault. Are there any questions? I think Mr. Trumbo is available if there are questions.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second. Call the roll. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Mr. Blumert?
Wait, is Stacy there just to briefly explain this?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll back up. You have a question?
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi. Can you just give us a brief synopsis of this?
Yeah, there's a vault underneath the floor of the Sally Port courthouse. That vault houses all the OG&E equipment that runs the electricity for the courthouse. They're needing to upgrade that. It's pretty aged. And when we got looking in that vault, the columns are in disrepair. So our part of the project is to repair the columns, replace the columns actually. And OG&E is going to actually do all the electrical work. That'll put our courthouse in good shape from an electrical standpoint. And I believe that vault also serves some of the other downtown buildings. Pretty involved project. Very necessary.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions? Okay, I think we have to back up the calling the roll. We have a motion and a second. We'll start again. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Commissioner Blumert?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Trumbo. Also, item 47, capital projects to replace damaged elevator doors in the courthouse, $8,000. Are there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Call the roll. Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Commissioner Mon,
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer,
Aye.
Mr. Hooton,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor.
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion carries. Item 48, discussion authorizing the County Board of Equalization to meet a special session between May 31 and not later than July 31 of this year to hear and adjudicate protests on a, if needed, as needed basis pursuant to Title 68 of the statutes, Section 2863. Mr. Hooton, do you have a brief
Motion to
explanation?
approve. Yes, this is done every year. We have to do this to get all the cases heard. This year we'll need it even more because obviously our Board of Equalization has not been entering the building, nor has the public for this matter. So this will allow us to do what we always do every year, and we usually extend it to this statutorily allowed date.
Part of the reason that we do that is also because of the storm season. We have the ability of removing value from property when it's destroyed by wildfire or storms, and we are heading into that season, and it is a useful tool for us to be able to help property owners who are affected by disasters.
Excellent point. Any further questions? I'm sorry, is there a motion and a second?
We have a motion and a second.
Thank you. Okay, we'll call the roll. Mr. Stone,
Aye.
Commissioner Mon,
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer,
Aye.
Mr. Hooton,
Aye.
Mr. Warren,
Aye.
Mr. Stein,
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor.
Aye.
I'll vote aye. Motion carries. Item 49, update on the 2020 tax estimate. Mr. Morrison, are you there?
That masked man coming to the microphone is Mr. Michael Morris.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Just in relation with some of the previous item on the agenda, we are dealing with COVID-19 in regards to the timing of things with our office. It couldn't have come at the worst time. It's right at tax season, which is exactly what we're involved in. I would like to compliment our employees for the way they dealt with it and that we are pushing through. With this, these are the annual projections that estimates that we provide Danny's Lambert at the clerk's office to start the budgeting process for this coming year. In our discussions with Danny and the BET, I think Danny has already mentioned the flatline approach that the BET was going to take for the budgeting session. We have done the same with our valuations because due to COVID-19, we are about 2 weeks behind where we are in our normal work. Some of that we are going to work through as fast as we can to bring things up, but we will make our deadlines. So with that, the methods you're seeing in the report are flatline projections that we push forward. At this point, that's all I'm comfortable doing. The overall difference from October tax roll to the estimate is just under 1.5%, about 1.4, just under a $1 million increase from previous October amounts. Some of the significant things I think we need to look at are in regards to the TIF valuations. There are currently 17 TIFs in Oklahoma County. It'll be the first year that the county budget amounts will exceed the $3 million mark, come out of county budget. We are still seeing changes for additional homestead, which the county has not been reimbursed, has not been reimbursed since 2001 for the state of Oklahoma, and I doubt that it will continue or ever change from that from this point forward. But with that, we're looking at, I said, about a 1.4% increase for estimates at this point in time. I do feel that it will be more than that at one point. COVID-19 will not be impacting the valuations on property. State law requires us to value property as of January 1 of each year, so COVID-19 has come after January 1. We are already hearing from property owners if there is any possibility of relief due to COVID-19. And I'm sure that that will be brought up into the appeals process, which is, refers back to the previous agenda item as we said, July 31st. With that, does anybody have any questions?
Okay, seeing no questions, is there a motion to receive the report?
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. Call the roll. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Morrison and
Thank you.
Mr. Stein. Okay. Next item is item 51, a general fund revenue projection for
Item
the following
50.
fiscal year. Mr. Lambert.
Commissioner, we're on item 50.
50, I'm sorry, 50. That's the one I was looking at, just said the wrong number. Mr. Lambert, are you?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to attempt to share my screen again so we can go over the projections. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
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 All right. So these are the fiscal year 2021 general fund projections. The first column you see there is our current projected revenue for general fund by line item. Second column is what we have collected to date through the month of March. That is our baseline for projecting out the rest of this fiscal year. So we've got March numbers, and then we project out the last 3 months, which is that middle column. And then that serves as our baseline for next fiscal year's projections at this point. A lot of the revenues are 90% of what we project for this year. And some are based on contract. If they're fixed amount, we leave those as a fixed amount. The highlighted column, the highlighted yellow column, 2021 projections. The very first number is the number Mike Morrison just went over. Appreciate him providing that information. Projected revenue for property tax, $73,652,000. That's about a $953,000 or 1.3% increase over what we budgeted for this fiscal year. And then moving down, you got miscellaneous items, you got intergovernmental revenue, you got charges for services. Another one I wanted to point out here is our interest income for general fund. This year, you can see over here on the left, we budgeted $1 million for interest. We are only projecting we'll bring in about $641,000 due to the decrease in the prime rate. And then the Mark Cycle with the Treasurer's Office provided a projection for next year for interest. We've lowered that down to $200,000. So that really impacts our general fund revenue projections for next year. Then we have some miscellaneous categories. All total, we're projecting $91,696,933. That's about a $153,000 increase over our current year projections. Of course, these are just estimates at this point. We will have a better number in September when we prepare the September supplement. We'll have the certified tax amounts, and we'll know the exact amount that we collected for the fiscal year to use as our base. The other portion of this total is our fund balance. We're projecting a fund balance at $13,996. I will say that is a very conservative estimate. You can see over here our fund balance to start last year was $15.9 million, so that's about a $2 million decrease. We are always typically conservative this time of year. Again, we amend that in September. That fund balance is built on the basis of us lapsing out of our reserve about $8.3 million and lapsing about 2% of our department budgets. Last year, departments lapsed about 4.6% of their budget. So again, very conservative, but that's the way we typically build it. You add the revenue, the fund balance. We have total sources available for next fiscal year's budget. The highlighted yellow amount there, $105,693,802. So that's the number we have to work off of going into next year. If this board does decide to go with a flat budget, everything stays the same. Every department's budget remains the same. That would put about a little more than $7 million in our reserve for next year. Does anybody have any questions?
Motion to receive the report.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Was there a second?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. Report is received. Thank you much, Mr. Lambert.
Thank you.
Okay, item 51. This is BET. I'll let you explain it, Mr. Compton.
Morning again. This item is addressing the estimate of needs process that BET would like to utilize this fiscal year. Our meetings are generally more of a workshop type setting where we all get together and discuss needs and move numbers around and have lots of robust discussion. With everything that's going on right now, it makes it really difficult for us to get together and have the type of dialogue and discussion that is needed to get a really good product to budget board. So the thought process that we went through and was trying to figure out how we can make this work. Our recommendation is based upon where we are right now, that BET would look at making a recommendation to budget board in May as a flat budget. Everybody's budget stays the same. And as the situation changes with COVID-19 and we're able to get back together, whether that's late May, June, July, August, whatever time frame it is, we will get back together, have that discussion on estimated needs that we normally have in this time period. We have it then, and then have a final recommendation for budget board at the September supplement. So everybody's budget, while it stays flat to begin the year, if there's needs to decrease that budget, that'll occur at September supplement time. If there's needs to increase particular budgets, we can address that at the September supplement time as well. But that's kind of the route we were thinking of going.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is a motion.
Cody, was that a pretty unanimous vote from BET?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And we wanted to go ahead, that's what we thought, but we wanted to bring it to budget board to make sure that the budget board was comfortable with this process.
Appreciate your work.
Cody, I have a question for you. So based on all the information we've got on the property taxes, and that's where we receive our funds, there's no sign that property taxes are going down. So where's the shortfall that you're expecting?
Not necessarily expecting a shortfall, but there's some budgets that that they may not need the same funding that they did last year. District 1, our estimate of needs has decreased a little bit from last year. A lot will. A lot of budgets might, just because the employee insurance costs that the employer pays is going down. So those decreases will need to be realized at some point, and that can happen at the September supplement. Not necessarily looking at needing to make decreases to the budget recommendation because of a shortfall in the revenue projections, but based upon certain needs of departments. So, for instance, if the general government line items, say the utilities, and I can't remember specifically what the request was on that, but let's say that the projection is that we need $100,000 less for utilities next year. Well, we don't necessarily need to budget that for them for the entire fiscal year. We would make that adjustment come September.
Thank you, Cody.
Okay, are there further questions?
And Cody, is this more in regards to BET's inability to meet right now in the way that you all normally meet?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, further questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the item. We'll call the roll. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
I will vote no. Motion carries. Next item, 52, discussion and possible action to approve COVID-19 plan amendment as prepared by HealthSmart for required health plan changes. Mr. Wilkerson.
Good morning.
Morning,
The board amended the plan last meeting in March 19th. We sort of did this preemptively. Since then, there's been some more regulations put forth on coverage related to COVID-19, and this amendment just keeps us in line with those regulations. The last amendment covered testing and treatment for COVID-19 at in-network PPO providers at 100%. And what this does is, with the regulations, covers testing also out of network at 100%. So that change is being made. It also sets certain limits for anti-hoarding on medication. You know, probably everyone's aware of hydroxychloroquine, the Q medication, and other antibacterial infection medications. It just makes sure those are watched and those aren't being hoarded. If an employee or member gets an exorbitant amount of any of those drugs, it's medically reviewed, and then on a case-by-case basis, which we haven't seen any of that at all on our plan. Those drugs are not, the fill rate of those drugs has not increased versus last period. So we don't see any impact on that. And then also it includes some language just for stop loss to say if an employee is out due to a closure, they're still covered. Just really in case they have a large claim, that way stop loss will cover their claim. And that's all I have on this item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll. Mr. Stone?
Aye.
Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Commissioner Blumert?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. Motion carries. And last item, 53, also Mr. Wilkerson.
This is an update or amendment due to recent regulations as well. And really, this is for stop loss purposes. In case an employee is out on any COVID-related leave, that language is just included to cover them as being eligible to participate. So this just covers us under stop loss if an employee is out related to COVID.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the roll. Mr. Stone? I'm sorry. I
Jerry
didn't
said
hear it
aye.
if you said anything. Aye? Okay. Commissioner Mon?
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer?
Aye.
Mr. Hooton?
Aye.
Mr. Warren?
Aye.
Mr. Stein?
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. Motion carries. Are there any board comments? Let's also go in order. Mr. Stone, do you have any for yourself or Mr. Freeman? Okay. Commissioner Mon?
No.
Commissioner Bloomer?
Nope.
Mr. Warren?
No.
Mr. Stein?
Yes, county government works. This is amazing technology. Sheriff, I'm with you. I just don't think they ought to pay that much. And third, I guess we're all talking about some sort of changes in our offices, and I'm going to be presenting some issues to the BET regarding funding for those for protecting our employees.
Okay. Very good. Sheriff Taylor?
I would just like to thank my colleagues for making the sheriff's office part of the county family and thinking about us. I have another issue, which is a top priority to the sheriff's office. We are so close to eliminating triple selling, first time in probably over 25 years. We have dead cells, we call them over there. These are cells that the plumbing doesn't work, the water's not working. The inmates have literally made holes from cell to cell to cell because there's no concrete there. I'm asking publicly if there's any way that county maintenance could assist my staff in the next few weeks. We could be at eliminating triple selling, which is a top priority in the middle of this pandemic, and we're kind of taking advantage of a bad situation and turning lemons into lemonade here. If we can eliminate triple selling, it would be a monumental step for our office.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff Taylor. All I'll say is just be safe, do the social distancing. Hopefully, more things will be opening up here shortly, and people who are unfortunately been put out of work by this situation will get back to work. Mr. Hooton, do you have anything?
Yes, I want to thank everyone for accepting the technology we've been using. I know it's awkward and odd, but it's also kept us moving. People across Oklahoma have made great sacrifices to slow the spread of coronavirus. The solidarity we've shown in the face of crisis is another testament to the great spirit of Oklahoma. But I think most Oklahomans recognize that now is the time to move to the next phase in our battle with this terrible virus. As has been said, you can't burn down the village to save the village. The shutdown of our economy has to end now. Oklahoma is not New York City. A one-size-fits-all approach to this crisis nationwide is not warranted. Keeping men and women out of work could, in a very short time period, collapse our entire economy. We in Oklahoma know what long-term horrible effects major economic shocks can have. It took decades for Oklahoma population to recover from the Dust Bowl and Great Depression. It took years for our state to recover from the oil bust of the early 80s. What's more, the negative social effects being felt right now, especially by the children, are tremendous. Domestic violence, mental health issues, not to mention other physical illness, are all on the rise because of the destruction of economic opportunity in our state. It's time to turn the page. We must continue to protect our most vulnerable population and act with individual responsibility and common sense. But it's time to begin reopening our economy. Oklahoma will stand together and let the fight begin to save our state. Oklahomans are the finest in the land. God bless Oklahoma and God bless the United States of America.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hooton. Okay, is there any new business? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hey, we'll call the roll. Mr. Stone.
Aye.
Commissioner Mon.
Aye.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Aye.
Mr. Hooton.
Aye.
Mr. Warren.
Aye.
Mr. Stein.
Aye.
Sheriff Taylor.
Aye.
And I'll vote aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Are you